Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're discussing something that's been circulating in the news recently: the possibility of Donald Trump seeking a third term as president. It might sound a bit unusual, especially since the Constitution sets a clear two-term limit, but Trump has been making statements suggesting that it could happen. So what does this really mean? Let's take a closer look at the situation and try to understand it from all angles. Now, if you're familiar with the 22nd Amendment, you'll know that it prevents anyone from being elected to the presidency more than twice. This was put in place after Franklin D. Roosevelt served 4 terms during World War II, a period when the country felt it was necessary to have consistent leadership. The idea behind this amendment is straightforward. Presidents should serve no more than 2 terms. However, Trump's recent comments suggest he's exploring ways to potentially work around this limit. He's hinted that there are methods to serve a 3rd term, although he hasn't fully elaborated on what those methods might be. There's no denying that the idea of a 3rd term goes against the grain of the Constitution, which has clearly outlined the 2-term limit. But here's where it gets interesting. Trump has made it clear that he's not ruling out the possibility of trying to extend his time in office. While we're not talking about something that could happen tomorrow, the mere suggestion raises some important questions about how flexible the Constitution really is and what that means for future leaders. But let's take a step back and look at what this would actually require. For Trump to serve a 3rd term, there would need to be a change to the Constitution. That's no easy task. It would take approval from 3/4 of the states to amend the Constitution, a nearly impossible hurdle given the current political landscape. So, while the idea of a 3rd term might sound like something Trump is considering, practically speaking, it would take a monumental shift in the political system to make it happen. Even beyond that, there are other avenues Trump has mentioned. For example, he's hinted at a scenario where someone else runs for president, with Trump as their vice president, and then somehow becomes president again if the sitting president steps down. While this might sound like a clever workaround, the 12th Amendment states that no one ineligible for the presidency can be vice president. So, even in this case, there's a significant legal barrier. So, how does this all affect everyday people? Well, while these political discussions might seem like they're happening in the halls of power, they can have real-world impacts. When a sitting president talks about staying in office longer than the Constitution allows, it can raise concerns about the balance of power in government. For everyday citizens, this could lead to uncertainty about how power transitions in the U.S. If the rules are questioned, it might create a sense that the system isn't working as it should. For many people, the stability of government is something that's taken for granted, but moments like these make us ask, how secure are those systems really? And when it comes to practical consequences, it's worth thinking about how a prolonged presidency could affect policies that directly impact you. If one person holds the office for longer than expected, it might prevent fresh perspectives or policy changes the new leader could bring. Plus, the political tension that comes with challenges to constitutional limits could lead to instability, making it harder to pass meaningful legislation or focus on the issues that matter most to the public. On top of that, if the idea of changing term limits gains traction, it could deepen divisions in the country. We've already seen how polarized things can get, and adding a challenge to the Constitution could make those divisions even more pronounced. Some may view it as an effort to preserve power, while others might see it as a direct threat to democratic norms. That kind of division can impact everything from elections to everyday interactions, as the political environment becomes more charged. So, while this discussion might not be something you deal with on a day-to-day basis, it's still worth keeping an eye on. The health of our democracy and the way we handle leadership transitions is something that affects everyone, regardless of political affiliation. Even if a 3rd term doesn't happen, these conversations shape the way we view power, fairness, and the limits of authority. It's a reminder that the political landscape is always evolving, and staying informed can help us better understand how changes in government could ripple through the rest of society. Thanks for tuning in today. I'd love to hear your thoughts. How do you feel about the possibility of a 3rd term for Trump? What do you think it means for the future of American democracy? Drop a comment below, and let's continue the conversation.